Welcome to Filmtale Echoes. Have you ever imagined taking a trip only for your plane to crash on a dangerous, remote island where survival is nearly impossible? What would you do to escape? This is the story you are about to witness. The tale begins on a lonely island, once a secret hideout for a gang of criminals who stored their drugs there, believing it was safe from the law. But when the police learned of their hideout and prepared to raid it, panic took over. In desperation, the criminals dumped their entire stock into the river. The chemicals poisoned the water, and the crocodiles that had lived there for generations began to mutate. They grew stronger, faster, and more violent. No longer confined to the river, they hunted across the island, spreading terror. Among these monsters, one rose above all. A massive crocodile with a dark scar on its face, feared as the queen of the island. Far away, Kyle, a young biology student, was learning about crocodile behavior in class, unaware that this knowledge would soon become her lifeline. Her past, however, weighed heavily on her. She had lost her brother, the only family she had. His final wish had been simple: scatter his ashes in the river of a distant island. Determined to honor him, Kyle agreed to the journey. Her friend joined her but secretly invited two others along. Their uneasy journey led them to a private plane for the final stretch. On the way, Kyle saw a newspaper warning about the crocodile threat in the very region they were heading to. An old man even tried to caution her about the scarred crocodile, but she dismissed the warning, focused on her brother's last wish. The plane took off, but disaster struck. On board, tensions rise when one businessman keeps talking loudly on his phone despite warnings. An elderly passenger, irritated, tries to snatch the phone, but before the argument settles, alarms blared as the aircraft faltered and plunged into the river. Most passengers survived, though one elderly man did not. On the island, one girl was gravely injured, and the pilot rushed to tend to her. But the co-pilot remained trapped in the water, struggling for life. Before the pilot could reach him, a monstrous crocodile erupted from the river, dragging the man beneath its jaws. The pilot barely escaped, shaken to his core. Fear settled over the survivors, but the nightmare was just beginning. While others tried to gather their wits, Kyle's friend wandered into the jungle and discovered a nest of crocodile eggs. Greed took hold, and she secretly pocketed them, unaware of the peril she invited. The pilot explained what they were facing. These crocodiles had evolved into killers that attacked without hunger or reason. Now, survival on the island would be a fight against creatures driven only by bloodlust. Kyle, with her knowledge of biology, quickly understood the behavior of the mutated crocodiles and how to survive. The group, recognizing her expertise, accepted her as their leader. She guided them with urgency, explaining that they had to find a safe place before nightfall, or none of them might survive the darkness. Most followed her without question, though one girl resented Kyle's authority, wishing she could lead instead. As night descended, the danger intensified. Kyle instructed the group to stay still and have a fire lit. Knowing that flames could keep wild predators at bay, they took turns standing guard, ensuring some rest while others stayed vigilant. At midnight, it was the businessman's turn to stay awake, but greed and obsession got the better of him. Instead of guarding, he wandered into the bushes hoping to get a phone signal. In the shadows, a crocodile waited. With terrifying speed, it lunged, biting him in half. The group was stunned to find that the beast had left his body uneaten, a chilling sign. Kyle realized the horrifying truth. These creatures no longer hunted for food. They killed for pure obsession, driven by something far darker than hunger. Soon after, Kyle spotted a cabin in the distance, a potential refuge. They moved carefully toward it, only to discover 3 crocodiles lying in wait. She urged the group to retreat quietly, But before they could react, one crocodile struck, instantly killing one of the girls. Panic erupted as the rest of the group sprinted toward the cabin. In the chaos, a crocodile seized the girl injured during the plane crash, sinking its jaws into her leg. With immense effort, the survivors dragged her inside and slammed the door shut just in time. Outside, the monsters rammed against the cabin with terrifying force, trying to break in. Inside, the group faced another crisis. The injured girl's condition was critical, but venturing out before sunrise was almost certainly a death sentence. As they waited, one of the boys discovered an old map hidden in the cabin. It showed a nearby building that might still be standing, a place with supplies or a way to call for help. Kyle realized this was their only hope. Tension flared when the girl who resented Kyle refused to follow, accusing her of blindly leading them to danger. She blamed Kyle for her brother's death and questioned whether she could save anyone. For a moment, Kyle felt her confidence crumble, paralyzed by doubt. The pilot stepped forward, his voice firm. He reminded everyone that doing nothing guaranteed death, and that Kyle was their best chance to survive. A vote followed, and the majority decided to trust her. Reluctantly, the defiant girl had no choice but to follow. Before leaving, Kyle gave clear instructions for survival. If a crocodile attacked, they must never pull away from its grip. Instead, they had to force an object into its mouth to inflict pain and break free. And above all, they had to stay out of the water, because once a crocodile dragged someone under, survival was almost impossible. The group armed themselves with makeshift weapons and followed the map through the dense jungle. Soon, they reached a wide river blocking their path. But this was no ordinary river. It teemed with crocodiles lurking just below the surface. Kyle suggested building a raft to cross safely, reassuring everyone that the heat of the day would keep the creatures resting underwater. As they worked, danger struck. Kyle's friend spotted a crocodile approaching and struck it down with her weapon. But the act of killing drew the attention of many more crocodiles. The carefully laid plan collapsed as the creatures, far more aggressive than expected, began to close in. The group rushed onto the raft and pushed it into the river, but the monsters pursued them relentlessly. Panic spread. One wrong move could tip the raft, leaving them at the mercy of the bloodthirsty creatures. In that moment, the girl injured in the plane crash made a heartbreaking choice. To save the rest, she leapt into the river, drawing the crocodile's attention. Her husband's heart shattered, and he tried to follow her, but the pilot grabbed him, holding him back. While the creatures attacked the brave sacrifice, the rest of the group fought to push the raft forward. By sheer determination, they finally crossed the river, alive but scarred. By the time they reached the building marked on the map, inside, the pilot realized the truth. This was no ordinary structure. The room was littered with bullets, drugs, and scattered evidence of the mafia's operations. This was the same place where the criminals had dumped their toxic drugs into the river, poisoning the crocodiles that had become monsters. The pilot warned the group to move carefully, but the same girl who had resisted Kyle's leadership rushed ahead recklessly. The others split into pairs, searching for any device to call for help. The pilot followed the stubborn girl, determined to rein her in. He confronted her, accusing her of selfishness, and in anger, pushed her down the stairs. She barely managed to grab hold, begging for her life. He leaned forward to help her up, but at that instant, a crocodile lunged from the shadows, dragging the pilot away in a terrifying instant. The girl screamed, watching in horror as he disappeared. The others rushed to her, and in the face of true danger, her pride shattered. She admitted her mistakes, apologized to Kyle, and confessed how unfair she had been to the group. Yet the building was far from safe. Crocodiles swarmed every corner, not just hunting, but drawn to the toxic chemicals that had created them. The nightmare was far from over. The group was trapped in a deadly labyrinth, surrounded by creatures driven insane by poison and obsession. The survivors spotted a radio across the hall, a lifeline that could call for rescue. But the path was treacherous, crawling with sleeping crocodiles. Holding their breath, they crept forward. Disaster struck when the boy who had found the map accidentally stepped on a crocodile egg. The sharp crack echoed through the room, waking the beasts instantly. Within seconds, the boy was dragged under, his screams cut short by the water. The remaining four sprinted into the room with the radio and slammed the door shut. Shock and fear gripped them, but Kyle forced herself to stay calm. She switched the radio on and managed to send a message for help. For a moment, hope returned, but the device suddenly went dead. Panic surged. Staying meant certain death, and rescue was far from guaranteed. The group decided to leave the building. The moment they stepped outside, terror awaited them. The Queen Crocodile, the largest and deadliest, marked by a black scar, stood before them. Kyle remembered the old man's warning: avoid the one with the black mark. The scarred beast advanced slowly, its eyes locked on Kyle's friend, who had stolen the crocodile eggs. She tried to appease the creature by holding out the eggs, but it was too late. With terrifying speed, the queen snapped her powerful jaws around the girl, lifting her into the air and slamming her against a wall. Kyle refused to surrender. She grabbed a gun she had found, firing at the beast, but the bullets barely made a dent. The crocodile roared, angrier than ever. Using the distraction, the others dragged the badly injured girl away, racing for safety. Thinking quickly, Kyle seized a sharp piece of metal and plunged it into the crocodile's eye. The creature thrashed in pain, giving her the chance to escape. Fueled by grief and rage over the lives lost, Kyle set the building on fire. Flames engulfed the structure, consuming the trapped crocodiles. Even then, the nightmare was far from over. Many more still lurked across the island, and the survivors had no idea if they would truly make it out alive. Just when hope seemed lost, a helicopter appeared, cutting through the sky. Their earlier distress signal had worked. The last remaining survivors were lifted to safety, finally escaping the horrors of Bayou Island. Weeks later, Kyle, healthier and stronger, traveled alone to fulfill her brother's final wish. She scattered his ashes into the water, finding a quiet moment of peace. But in a chilling post-credit scene, the camera returned to the ruins of the building on Bayou Island. There, the pilot, thought dead, was alive. His face scarred by crocodile bites and his body strangely transformed. The mystery of his fate lingered, leaving the audience with a haunting question: had the island truly let him go?